Which Greek god do you associate with evil? It's Hades. We all know you're thinking Hades. But why is it Hades? It's probably because in our modern thinking, the ruler of the underworld equals Satan, and Satan equals evil. But Greek mythology's king of the underworld, Hades, is not evil. In fact, Hades is a good guy, and way better than his asshole brothers Zeus and Poseidon. And a lot of the blame for that modern lie of Hades being evil goes back to Disney's 1997 Hercules movie, which did this to Hades.
Name is Hades, Lord of the Dead. Hi, how you doing?
But that entire Hercules movie was just all kinds of wrong. Like, let's shit on Disney for a second, shall we? Zeus is not a family man. Man, that dude cheats for sport. And he doesn't just cheat with women who are consensual, by the way. Hera is certainly not Hercules' loving mother because Hercules is one of Zeus' illegitimate children, and Hera hated Hercules and tried to kill him when he was a baby, and when she failed at baby murder, she decided to ruin his life by making him murder his own wife and children, by the way. And Disney even messed up the basics because the son of Zeus is not called Hercules. It's Heracles. Hercules is a Roman name, by the way. It's funny because I'm trying to be a smartass here, but I'm pronouncing Heracles wrong because I think the Greeks say it like Heracles or something like that. And also, Hades was not a dude with weird blue flames for hair. He was never depicted as that, nor was he ugly. Some texts even say that Hades is the most handsome of the three big Greek brothers. So, not ugly, not evil, just misunderstood. And that's why I call this episode As always, there are extra facts about Hades that don't fit the flow of my storytelling but are added at the end because I want to give you everything there's to know about Hades, so watch until the end to get everything there's to know about Hades. Was Hades feared? Yes, but the fear came with the territory because Hades rules over death, and death is naturally scary. But you should know that in Greek mythology, the afterworld, death is not a bad place. Everybody goes there after life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But still, people aren't exactly fans of death and feared it, of course. And Hades just happened to rule over that which is inevitable. And if you're gonna die anyway, why waste your time praying to or even thinking about Hades? Best to just avoid it altogether, never mention Hades' name, and turn him into a taboo. With his brothers King Sparkles and Aquaman, you could at least feel like, you know, your farm being struck by lightning or your ship being sunk at sea can be avoided with some good old worshipping, but death, not so much. So the fear stemmed from the inevitable, not the evil. And in fact, death in the Greek underworld included paradise, heaven, and hell. And it's also not even Hades who claims your soul when you die. The Greek version of the Grim Reaper is actually Thanatos, who has the awkward job of showing up like, hey, what's up, bro? Are you dead? Except Thanatos doesn't look like this and was also described as beautiful and winged. So he would look more similar to his brother Hypnos, who was in charge of sleep. And Thanatos and Hypnos were in fact considered to be almost doing the same task. Death by Thanatos was as painless and natural as sleep, and there was nothing evil or subjective about it, you know?
But random, dispassionate, fair to rich and poor alike.
And yes, Thanos is very much named after Thanatos, who inspired the character of Thanos. So Thanatos collected the souls of the dead, and then Hermes would use his speed to actually transport them to the entrance of the underworld, where he hands them off to Charon, who is the ferryman that then ferries the soul across the river Styx into the actual underworld. But this is where it all comes to a bit of a hitch. The stop, you had to pay Charon for that duty, because this guy was all like,
bitch better have my money.
And that is why the ancient Greeks buried the dead with 2 coins to pay Charon. If you don't have that money, your ass is not getting into the underworld, and you have to wait at the shores of the river Styx for 100 years, and then you actually get a free ride into the underworld, because
you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're gonna get a haircut.
And once you get across the river Styx, congrats, yay, you made it into the underworld. And the 3 judges will now go through your browser history and every action you took in life to determine whether you deserve to be happy forever or eternal suffering where you're punished forever. Most of us who lived a normal life without great heroics or terribly evil deeds would go to the Asphodel Meadows. Basically a second life in the underworld, which would be a lot like life on Earth. And after 100 years of that, you drink from the river Lethe, which wipes your memories, and then you are reborn. The special people from Greek mythology go to Elysium. Not simple Jack special, like great deeds, super pious, glorious kind of special. And even within that paradise, Elysium, there was the Isle of the Blessed, basically the gated community for the actual heroes like Achilles, Atalanta, or Odysseus, you know, the special people. And everyone in Elysium, though, gets to party and feast all day. A return to Earth is eventually optional, but it's like, why would you leave eternal paradise? And the scum of the earth was sent to actual hell, called Tartarus. Note, you are also considered scum of the earth if you just disrespected the gods or hurt their ego by beating them in a contest because, oh my god, hubris. In Tartarus, you received eternal punishment, specially designed by Hades. That punishment could be fun stuff like burning on a spinning wheel for all eternity, or healthy exercise like pushing a rock up a hill for all eternity, or a nutritious meal plan like starving and dying of thirst for all eternity. And then there's also the fields of mourning for those who punched their own ticket while mourning their lost love, which was probably a super fun place filled with super fun people. And remember how I said the concept of death and sleep were very similar in its respective gods or brothers? That's also reflected in the underworld. The land of the dreams was also down here, though while Hypnos sent people to sleep, it was Morpheus, the god of dreams, who ruled over the land of the dreams. And all of this, the entire underworld, was protected by Cerberus, the 3-headed dog bouncer of the underworld. And Hades was in charge of all of that, meticulously so. While Zeus and Poseidon were getting drunk, meddling with mortals, murdering, abusing, kidnapping women, causing more drama than a goddamn telenovela, and being responsible for all the Greek stories and actually kind of keeping this channel alive. Thank you. Hades was a stickler for rules and just did his job 24/7, married to order. And that only made Hades seem even weirder because the loner hanging out with the dead's not exactly a good Tinder profile. And it fit the already biased and fearful opinion people had of him. Like, Zeus and Poseidon would be kind of like the jocks from the football team, basking in glory while they're actually terrible people. And Hades is the good-hearted loner that is misunderstood because he keeps himself, and he's just labeled as evil because he's misunderstood and people don't get it. You get me? All that being said, Hades did kind of kidnap his wife Persephone. But that's not as much of a skirt in the closet as you might think. First of all, I repeat that Zeus and Poseidon kidnapped before breakfast, but one man's evil does not justify another man's. So here's the thing though. Zeus was Persephone's father and promised Hades that he could marry Persephone, which was a father's right at the time. Note that it was not a father's right at the time to get his own daughter pregnant, especially against her will, but Zeus managed to get his daughter Persephone pregnant against her will. Anyway, yeah, that's a different story. I'll tell you about that another time. The problem was that Zeus didn't tell Persephone about this, so Hades kidnapped her without her even knowing. And Zeus also didn't tell Persephone's mother, Demeter, about this, so Demeter scoured the earth looking for her daughter, and it all turned into a pretty major drama because Demeter was pretty important. She's the goddess of harvest, and humanity eating was at Demeter's mercy, and she promised Zeus that she'd turn his beloved world of the living into the underworld, aka I'm gonna let everybody starve in this bitch unless you give me my daughter back. So Zeus went to Hades like, hey, yo, about that niece of yours, you kidnapped a while back, Persephone? Yeah, I'm gonna need her back. Problem was, Hades was uncontrollably in love with Persephone and truly treated Persephone like a queen. Like, you don't understand. Men in Greek mythology don't usually see their women as equals, but Hades did. He intended to share all his power and everything with Persephone, and he was loyal. All that was unheard of for a mortal man in general back then, but for a god, Forget about it. Plus, as I said, Hades was often said to be the most handsome of his brothers. So really before long, Persephone was like, this isn't all that bad. I get to be queen of the underworld. They call me Dread Persephone. I got mad respect from the living. I got mad respect from the dead. And I got mad respect from my husband, and the man is pretty damn fine. I mean, I'm happy to see my husband. In fact, Persephone didn't just like it. Hell, I love you! Before she knew it, Persephone fell in love with Hades. So that meant that when Zeus forced Hades to send Persephone back, Hades came up with a plan to save his future with Persephone. If she ate food from the underworld, no one could take her from him. Because once you leave from the underworld, you can never fully leave. No one can change it. And because Persephone was in her fears, she was in on it and ate 3 pomegranate seeds and was forever bound to the underworld and could only return to the world of the living for 3 months of the year. Her mother, Demeter, was overjoyed whenever her daughter returned to her, and the world's harvest was in full swing for 9 months of the year. But those 3 months, when Persephone returned to the underworld, to her husband Hades, Demeter was sad and basically said, man, screw these crops. Everybody can starve for all I care. And that's how we got winter. Extra notes. Fun fact that I absolutely have to give credit to Overly Sarcastic Productions too, who did the research on this common misconception that I'm about to share with you. Persephone is often thought to be the goddess of spring, since when she visits Earth, spring dawns. She is not. That is just Demeter being happy. Persephone is very much only one thing: Queen Dread, the lady of the underworld. And in fact, there are many, many more surviving ancient texts about Persephone in that role than even Hades as the underworld ruler. In fact, Persephone was mentioned as the ruler of the underworld 1,000 years before Hades was first mentioned. So there's legit reason to assume that Persephone was once believed to be the sole ruler of the underworld, and this is why the story I just told you maybe only came later as a means to make all the main rulers male, because men can't deal with women in power, especially not in ancient times. This is supported by the fact that underworld gods were never really referred to by name, since it is believed to bring death. This was common for Hades, who was never really mentioned by his actual name. And by the way, that's where J.K. Rowling got the whole "he who must not be named" thing for Voldemort from. Well, throughout all ancient texts, Persephone has so many aliases, you'd think her name was Jennifer Garner. Get it? Alias Jennifer Garner. It's a 90s joke. The point is, people avoided saying Persephone's name long before Hades was even a thing. And they'd only have a reason to do that if they feared her, if she was in fact the original ruler of the underworld.